Hello everyone and welcome back to Clear Creek Solutions software educational videos, and in today's video we're getting to part 3 of our ArcMap or ArcGIS overview and instruction here. If you haven't seen the previous videos in the series, I suggest going to our channel, liking and subscribing, and then looking at those other videos where we go over the download and what the different kind of layers are and file types that are included in ArcMap and ArcGIS. Anyways, in this one, we're going to go over how to manage layers in your project so that they're visually appealing, you're able to see them properly, and organize them in a way that makes your project successful. So the first thing I'm doing here is I'm going to open up an ArcMap example project. So if you own ArcMap, you can actually go to your Esri account and you can download the ArcGIS practice projects. And so it's actually located in my C drive. I went to ArcGIS and then ArcTutor. You can see here they have numerous practice projects with practice files to work with. So I'm actually taking this one from the editing section just to give you an example and show you the file types and how we can sort of deal with them and modify them to make them work for our project. So go there on your project folder to access those. I'm going to open up example 3 here, which is one I have outlined. So you can see there's 2 layers in this project here. We have the city boundaries and we have the county boundaries layers. And you can see we can see both of those layers on our screen here. And using the mouse wheel, we can zoom in and out to get a different view of those layers. And if we left click, we can then move in the modeling space here. So those are those 2 layers there. When you have a box check next to the layer, that means that layer is visible in your project space. When it is unchecked, that means it is not visible in the project space. So if I click base roads here, which is currently unchecked, and check it, now we can actually see all the base roads for this city and county project. And if I zoom in, you can see that there's a number of lines here showing that we have access to the base roads. So what if I wanted to not see them again? Well, very simply, I would just uncheck that. Or maybe I don't want to see the city boundaries, for instance. Well, I would hit the check mark there, and now we can no longer see the city boundaries. How you have your layers organized over here on the left is actually going to determine what's on the top of your GIS project, or what you can be able to see stacked there. So for example, we have base road, city boundaries, county boundary. It goes top to bottom there, meaning the county boundary is on the bottom. And then we build up to city and base roads. Well, what if we move these layers around? So what if we move the city boundaries on top of the base roads here? Well, you can see some of the base roads actually disappear because now we're seeing that city boundaries layer on top of the base roads layer. The only way that you can have a layer on top of another layer but be able to see the bottom layers is if you have transparency turned on. So I'll show you that here. For example, I have the county boundary. If I move this to the top, right, we can actually still see some of the base roads and city boundaries. And how is that possible? Well, if I right click on county boundary and I go to properties here, we can see that you can actually set the display for your layer, and it's set to transparency of 52%. That means 52% of the layer has been sort of removed, and you can see what is on the bottom there. So if I actually set transparent to 100% and I clicked apply, now we actually can't see the layer at all, right? Because it's 100% transparent. Think of a piece of paper, right? A transparent piece of paper, you can see through there. So if I go back to properties and I go to 0% transparent and I click apply, well, we actually can't see any of the other layers now unless I moved it to the bottom, right? So that's why utilizing transparency is pretty important. I'm going to go back here and select it and put it back to 52% transparent. So that's one of the easiest ways to make more than one of your layers visible in your project right off the bat there. What you can also do is change the color of your layer. So if you go to this square here, ArcGIS makes it real simple to change the color and layout of your layer. So for example, it's set to a blue color. What if I wanted to change it to some sort of hatched color here, like this radiation overlay? I could do that here. It has an outline color and you can determine the outline width. So let's say I want to make the width 2, for instance, with this hatch. I would select OK, and now it has changed how this layer is viewed in the project. To me, that's actually not easier to see, but that was just an example there. If I click OK again, you can see there's no outline on that layer. So if I go back, I want to make the outline width 2 again, and you can actually change the outline color as well. I have it set to this off black color here to make it clear what this county boundary is in our project. And you can do this with any numbers of layers here. With the city boundary, you could change this to a yellow color, for example, to maybe make it easier to see the roads. And then with the base roads, you can actually change what it looks like there. Currently, it's just a black color here with 1.0 width. We could change that. We could say, hey, we want to make it a high occupational lane. That's the style for that. We click OK, and all of a sudden, all the roads have now changed to this style, right? So that's how you can modify the styles, and change how you view your layers in your ArcGIS project, because depending on how many layers you have and what you're doing, you may want to be able to change the visual style so you can view more than one layer at once. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm gonna change it back to major road, and that appears to be what it is. And I'm gonna change this back to rows here just to make the visual situations a little easier here. So that's how to manage those 3 layers there. If you right click on any of your layers, you can see there's quite a few different options we have here. We can save them as a layer file. We can view that properties tab again, which is how we viewed the transparency. You can change how you actually select it. So with the symbol or with the color, the source and general information of that layer. And then you can also go to time or the HTML pop up to there. So there's quite a few options as well. If we right click again, we can open the attribute table, which gives us all the information of our layer. So we can see that this layer is a polygon shape and it has a certain area here. And then it has an ID of 0, so no real particular ID associated with it. However, if we opened up the base roads layer here by right clicking and going to attributes table, we can see that the shape is a polyline, right? Because it's multiple or many lines together combined to create one layer, but that is contained with, or has many lines contained within that layer, right? And they have different names depending on the streets and their identification for where they are on the coordinate plane. You can see there's about 2,000 plus, or actually closer to 4,000. I continue scrolling to keep showing you more, 6,000, thousands of roads here in this layer. And you can go through and identify and see where all those are. You can multi-select them by left clicking and dragging down, just so you can activate and see where those layers are in the project. Now, how do we add an additional layer? Well, we're going to get more in depth on how to add layers and things like that. But if you go quickly to Windows and Catalog here, you can see your catalogs based on where your project file explorer is located and actually add in more layers. So we have city boundary, county boundary, we have base roads. Well, if we want to add in rail, well, we're going to drag in that shape file. And remember, the shape file contains many other subfiles in our ArcGIS project. I'm going to move that here. So rail is on the bottom now. I want to see what this layer is. I'm going to move it to the top so maybe I can more easily see it and unclick these. So these are the rail layers here. I now know what those are. Maybe it's too hard for me to identify and see in my project, so I'm going to change it to this style here so I can more easily see those rails. And maybe I don't need the city boundaries anymore, so I uncheck to turn that off. So you see how this process works. So you can check and uncheck various layers so you can see what you're dealing with in your ArcGIS project. So that's a basic overview of managing layers and changing the styles. If you have any questions, you should leave it in a comment down below. And anyways, we will see you guys next time.